I'm Abigail.
3 months ago, I was at a Christmas dinner that turned into a nightmare. In front of 15 relatives, my father, Henry, kicked me and my 6-year-old daughter, Mia, out. My sister, Victoria, smiled coldly and told me to leave and never return. My mother, Eleanor, added that Christmas was so much better without me. But I didn't break down. I simply looked at them and said they wouldn't mind me doing what I was about to do. 5 minutes later, every single one of them was on their knees, begging me to undo it. Before I tell you what happened, let me take you back to how it all started. 18 months ago, my husband, Ryan, died in a tragic car accident. I was waiting outside Mia's kindergarten when I got the call from the hospital. I don't remember much of that day, just the feeling of my world shattering. 4 days later, at the funeral, my family showed up. But during the reception, I overheard Victoria whispering to Eleanor that I couldn't raise Mia alone and that they should consider having someone else take her. I was heartbroken, but I told myself they were just worried. At the burial, Henry pulled me aside and told me to be strong. That was all he said on the day I buried my husband. Little did I know this was just the beginning. 3 months after the funeral, a substantial inheritance from Ryan's family came through. It was a large sum, around $2. $5 million. Once the money hit my account, everything changed. Victoria started calling me regularly, feigning concern. Eleanor invited me and Mia to Sunday dinners every week, saying family needed to stick together. Even Henry, who had barely spoken to me since my wedding, suddenly wanted to catch up. At the 4th Sunday dinner, Henry cleared his throat and suggested that I let Victoria manage my finances. He said she was good with money and that I was more of a creative type. I told him I was handling things fine. The atmosphere in the room turned icy. Victoria jumped in, still with that fake sweetness, saying they were just worried about me since I'd never dealt with such a large amount of money before. After dinner, as I was getting Mia's coat, an old, wrinkled hand caught my wrist. It was my grandmother, Amelia, who was 88 years old and as sharp as a whip. She leaned in close and whispered to be careful with the money. She didn't trust anyone in the room. Then she pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm and said there was someone I needed to call. Before I could ask, Mia came running and Amelia shuffled away. When I opened the paper at home, it had a phone number and 3 words in Amelia's shaky handwriting: "Call Ethan Reed." I didn't call right away. I thought I was overreacting. Maybe Amelia was just old and confused. 6 months passed, and Victoria's calls became more frequent and pointed. She started talking about Henry's struggling antique business and Eleanor's mounting medical bills. She insinuated that it was hard for me to sit on all that money while the family suffered. Then came the dinner that changed everything. Eleanor called, crying. She said Henry was about to lose his antique shop, a business he'd built over 30 years. They might even lose their house. Despite everything, they were still my parents, so I offered to lend them $60,000, no interest, and they could pay me back whenever. But Henry's booming voice came through the phone, saying he didn't need charity from his own daughter. Victoria then smoothly suggested that I sign some papers to let her handle the investments so they could help the family properly. When I asked what papers, she said it was just standard stuff like power of attorney and asset management. But I remembered Ryan's words: never sign anything without reading it twice, and never sign over control of money to family. I told her I needed to think about it. That night, I finally called the number Amelia had given me. The next day, when I got home from work, Mia was crying in her bed. It took a long time for her to tell me that Eleanor had said she wished Ryan was still alive instead of me because Ryan knew how to take care of her and I didn't. My heart broke into a million pieces. Later, I found out through a distant cousin that Victoria had been spreading rumors in the family group that I was gambling away the inheritance. I was furious. I decided to meet Ethan Reed. He was younger than I expected, in his early 30s. When I walked into his office, I saw a photo of him and Ryan at a college party. He told me that Ryan was his best friend and that Ryan had asked him to look out for me and Mia if anything happened to him. Ethan had done some digging. He showed me that Victoria had contacted the inheritance executor 2 months ago, inquiring about transferring the rights. He also found out that Henry's antique business was on the verge of bankruptcy due to bad investments, and Victoria's fashion boutique was in debt. They wanted my money, not to help me manage it. 1 week before Christmas, Victoria showed up at my door with a manila folder. She wanted me to sign the papers for the family. I refused, and she started to insult me, saying I was just lucky to marry Ryan and that I wasn't smart enough to handle the money. Mia heard everything. 3 days before Christmas, Henry called and demanded that I come to Christmas dinner at Amelia's house and sign the papers. He threatened to disown me if I didn't. But I remembered Amelia's words and Ethan's warnings. I told him I wouldn't sign anything, and he hung up on me. On Christmas Eve, I went to Amelia's house alone, leaving Mia with a neighbor. Amelia gave me a sealed envelope and told me not to open it until the right moment at dinner the next day. She said it was insurance, the real kind, and that it contained the truth and something they never expected. On Christmas morning, Ethan called. He said Amelia had forwarded him an email chain between Victoria and Eleanor. It was a detailed plan to manipulate me into signing the papers. They'd been planning it since 2 weeks after Ryan's death. Ethan said he had printed copies and would be at Amelia's house by 8 that night. At 4:30 p.m. Mia and I arrived at Amelia's. The house looked picture perfect, but I knew there was rot underneath. Victoria greeted us with a fake smile and led us to the dining room. During dinner, halfway through the main course, Victoria stood up and made an announcement. She said our family was in a difficult situation and that they were concerned about how I was managing my inheritance. She then asked me to sign the papers to let her manage my finances, all for my own good and Mia's future. I stood up slowly and said no. The room went silent. Henry got angry and said I couldn't say no to family. He accused me of hoarding money while the family suffered. Eleanor looked at me coldly and said I'd always been selfish. Mia started to cry. Amelia sat still, watching. I was under so much pressure, but I held my ground. Just as I was about to be forced out, I remembered the envelope and Amelia's words. I pulled out my phone and called Ethan. I put it on speaker and he said he was 5 minutes away. Henry demanded to know who Ethan was. I just smiled and said they'd see. The room erupted in chaos. Victoria tried to make Henry kick me out before Ethan arrived, but Amelia stood up. She said it was her table, her Christmas dinner, and she'd decide who left and who stayed. She told Henry to sit down, and to everyone's surprise, he did. When Ethan arrived, he presented the email chain, which showed their long, planned scheme to steal my money. He also revealed Amelia's new will. Amelia had changed it 3 weeks ago, leaving her beautiful old mansion, worth about $2 million, to me. Victoria screamed in disbelief. Henry slumped in his chair, and Eleanor fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness. I was done listening to their excuses. I told them I wouldn't sue or press charges, but from then on, there would be boundaries. After that night, I received calls from relatives who apologized for believing Victoria's lies. I also found out that Henry's antique shop filed for bankruptcy, and Victoria lost several important clients. 2 weeks after Christmas, Amelia called and asked if she could move in with me and Mia. She said she'd been lonely in that big house, and we were the family she truly wanted. Mia was overjoyed, and I said yes. 1 month later, Amelia's old, fashioned rocking chair sat in the corner of our small apartment, and her collection of porcelain dolls lined the shelf. Every evening, we ate dinner together, shared stories, and created new memories. 3 months after Christmas, Eleanor called. She was defeated and asked for a chance to hear Mia's voice. I told her I wasn't ready to forgive, but I also wouldn't punish her forever. I needed time, and when I was ready, I'd reach out on my own terms. I've learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who support and love you. And I found that in Amelia and Mia. I'm building a new life, one where I protect myself and my daughter, and I'm finally at peace.